Does this look familiar? I can't tell you how many times I've said, I can fix that. Toss it into my mending pile where it's still sitting months later. Well, today I'm finally tackling it. So grab your mending and let's do it together. Hello, sewing friends, and welcome to Sew Suzette, the place to sew better and sew happier. Let's take a look to see what we've got. This is just a simple golf jacket that zips up, and the jacket has a lining, and that lining has ripped out. So we're going to attempt to make that a little bit more stable and sew it back into the waistband if it's possible without pulling it all apart. We'll have to see when we get into that. I have here the man's golf jacket, my friend's father, and this is the issue. The jacket's in really good condition otherwise, but this lining here, look at that. That is just shredding right apart. And he really likes the jacket. It's a perfect weight for him, but this lining has seen better days. It just wasn't sewn in right, or it's a cheap material. So I need to figure out a way of maybe stabilizing it and then re-sewing it to the waistband. And it looks like it was sewn together, right sides together, but I'm not going to be able to do that. What I think I'm going to do, because if I do it that way, I'm going to have to pull the whole thing apart. What I think I might do is, I have this black interfacing, it's fusible interfacing, and I'm just going to cut some strips, and I'm going to put some strips along the bottom to keep it stable, and then I'm going to flip this up just ever so slightly, and I'm going to tack it onto the waistband, which is stretchy, so I'm going to have to figure out how to do that by hand. Or maybe we can tack it on and I can stitch in the ditch. That might be an option too. So let's play around with it and figure out the best way of getting this repaired so that it stays wearable and useful for a longer period of time. Because like I said, otherwise the jacket's in pretty good well, here's the sleeves. The sleeves are not in good condition either. So we have a lot of work to do here, I think. Maybe what we need to do is find out where they would have sewn the lining down closed somewhere. And if they didn't, we can create that space. So here's where the art comes into mending, is taking a garment and figuring out how it was constructed so that you can deconstruct it in order to make the garment better again. And I don't see where they would have sewn it up. So what I think I might do is open up one of the side seams, and that way we can flip the whole jacket inside out, and I can work on this whole bottom all at once and do it the right way. And then we'll just sew this lining back together like we do when we close up a bag lining or something like that. So just take a couple of stitches here. My guess is that this is going to be serged, and we might have to take out a couple of lines. Let me show you how I'm opening up this seam. This is acetate, I believe, but it's a lining material, but it's very thin and tissue-like. And it does seem like there's two seams, so I'm clipping the tops, the inside seam or the outermost seam at this, in our vantage point. And then I'm taking and I'm finding where that surging seam is on the bottom here, and I'm clipping those just very carefully one at a time. A lot of times I'll take and put the ball of my seam ripper in here and just push, but this fabric is very delicate, I guess, fragile. It will rip very easily. So I want to be very careful with my seam ripping. And as I'm just pulling these serging stitches out, and once I get an opening like this, and I got a lot of, there's all my looper threads. Now I have a little bit of an opening. I can take that and flip that inside out, and now I can see the stitches that I want to pull. So this one is a chain stitch down there, and the top one is a serge stitch, and that looks like it's a 3-thread serge. And then the chain stitch, if I can pull that, we'll see which end it wants to pull from. Usually a chain stitch, if you find the right end, it should just pull right out. So it's not pulling from that end, so let's go down here. See if we can finagle that one out, and there it goes. It was that quick. Just finding the right side of the stitch and pulling. Now I need to find the serging stitch. There's the front side, top side, and the back side. And it's some little hard to tell on this one. Okay. So I'm going to try from this side, see if I can pull up that needle thread. And when you find the needle thread, then it should just be a matter of pulling that up. I'm going to find one down here on this side and clip it. And then once you get it, you just pull. There it is. It's out. And look at that. That looper thread just comes right off. All right, now I have a pretty decent hole. And I don't want to make it any bigger than that, I think. I think we're pretty good here. See, this acetate it just ravels like crazy. You can see that on the map. See all of that thread coming out of there. Okay, so let's see if this hole is big enough that we can turn this jacket right side out. And you know, there's a little bonus on this one. Let's show you this. The sleeves zip off. The interest of making this a little less cumbersome at the machine, I'm going to zip the sleeves off. That way you can just work with the torso of the jacket. And then it actually might also make it easier for us to work on the sleeves. Now all I have is just the jacket torso. So here's my hole. I'm reaching in, and then I'm just pulling the jacket through that hole so everything gets turned inside out again. There we go. All right, this is inside out. There's the waistband. This is the bottom of it. This is the side seam. There's my pocket there. And I think that is going to make it a heck of a lot easier to get this repaired. All right, I'm going to take this interfacing, I'm going to cut strips, and I'm going to iron that on the inside of this, just in maybe a 1/2 inch to 3/4 strip. I want some nice long pieces. I always save my scraps because there's a lot of little projects and things that you need interfacing for. I think I'm going to make 2 strips the width of my interfacing. I think that will be enough because this interfacing is all folded up. So there we go. That gives me just under 80 inches altogether. And I think that will be plenty to do what we need to do. Let's head to the iron. I have my seam opened up and I have my dressmaker's ham inside of it. This side is elasticized and it's gathered. So there's no way to keep this flat if I just lay it like this down. It doesn't stay flat. So what I did was I put my dressmaker's ham in here, and I'm just taking the interfacing strip that I made and I'm placing it as flat as I can on the lining, making sure that I just slightly overlap the fringe, not too much, because I want to cut the fringe off, but I don't want to take away too much. And then I'm just going to take my iron and very carefully tack it. Now, acetate, you can't use a very warm iron on here. It has to be pretty low heat. And so I need to make sure that this is going to stay on. So I'm just going to kind of maneuver the dress ham around so that I can get the iron on here. Now this would be a great place for like a mini iron. I don't have one as of yet. It's on my wish list. So I have that tacked on, and now I'm going to slide the ham out. And I'm just going to snip this off right here at the seam line. Okay, and pretty much that's what I'm going to do all the way around. It's an awkward technique. It's just you do what you have to do in order to get things to work properly. And so this is one of the ways that your tools like dressmaker's hams and sleeve rolls and things like that can help you. If you don't have a dressmaker's ham, you can just use maybe a folded up towel or something that you can slide in there. That probably would work pretty well too. I'm going to continue this, and I'll see you back at the sewing machine so that we can start attaching that on. I finished ironing the interfacing onto the jacket sleeves and the bottom of the lining on the jacket. Ran quickly to my serger, and this is a sleeve, and I just tried to get some serging around as far as I could get, just to kind of give it a little bit more stability and some strength, so that when we sew it, it maybe hopefully won't pull out as quickly and shred. And this is what we need to do with the sleeve. I did the same thing with the sleeve as I did with the jacket. I opened up a side seam and just pulled everything inside out. Now I need to attach the lining onto the cuff of the sleeve. So I need to take the cuff and basically tuck it in to the sleeve, and I'm going to attach it like this. And this is where the seam is, right there. And I want to make sure that I'm catching that. I need to kind of tuck the other sleeve inside of it so that I can have just a nice, neat, flat area to sew onto. So this one's going to be a little, not tricky, just more so well thought out, so to make sure that I've got everything out of my way. What I think I need to do is put a running stitch in the lining and do a little gather on it. Nothing special, just the longest straight stitch that I have. And I'm just going to stay within the serging. All right, so we need to leave a longish tail. Take the bobbin thread, which I believe is this one in my hand here, and I'm just going to start pulling it a little bit, just to give a little bit of a gather in here. So that way I can just kind of ease that in to fit the cuff. And we'll just slide these gathers around, and I'm going to pin it, and we'll bring it back here to the camera to get the sewing done. I have the lining layer gathered, and I have spread those gathers around as much as I could and set those in with some clips. Now I have the sleeve turned as inside out as I possibly can so that I can get my presser foot in there and hopefully catch that seam as we go around. Now my only problem with the way I'm doing it is that I can't see the lining underneath to make sure that I'm catching it. So we'll just have to give it a quick go around, and then we'll check it and make sure that we are catching everything underneath. All right, these are all of our threads that we used to gather up the lining underneath. So we're going to try to get these up and out of our way so they don't get caught up in the machine. And keep that lining nice and straight here now that we're on that home stretch. So that all seems to be caught in. All right, everything looks like it's pretty much caught there. So let's turn it right side out and see what it looks like. All right, so that's the outside. Here's the lining. It looks pretty good so far. And a couple of threads here and there, but all right. That's a little bit of the serging stitching coming through there. That one looks like it might be a little bit of a weak spot. So we'll go back and try to just tuck that in and sew it a little bit better. I see what happened. So right here, we tucked the underneath lining. So I'm just going to pull those stitches out. You know, you're not going to see the lining from the front of the jacket, but the whole idea is trying to get it done right. And because doing it the right way means that it's going to last. Okay, so it took a little bit of finagling to get that all pulled out. And it's still not 100% the way I want it, but I think that'll work enough. And just sew that down. Okay, that should be good. Do one last flip and check it out. All right, so there's my lining. And I think that was the spot, but that's pretty secure now. No one's ever going to see that. So that'll do. And I'll get the other sleeve done, and we're going to close up these seams now, which this is a pretty easy process. So here's the opening in the seam on the lining on the inside. So all I'm doing is finding where the holes of the seam line are on the back side, and just folding it and giving it a quick little finger press. And then I'm grabbing a clip and just clipping it down. And we're just going to slide this right under the machine and close up that lining with a stitch quite close to that edge. And that's all there is to it. And then this one is done. And then we move on to the next sleeve and the body of the jacket. There we go. That is the lining all closed up. And the sleeve will live to serve a few more years. The jacket bottom is going to be pretty much the same. I'm probably just going to run a long basting stitch in here and pull that up together just a little bit so that I can ease it in, and then just sew it back to the bottom of the waistband here. I might actually, when I'm finished with this, and go back over to the serger and give it a finishing edge, even though it's not going to show and doesn't wear, but it just needs some more strength. So let me get that basting stitch put in. We'll pull it up the gathers, and I'm going to get that sewn in. The jacket is now all basted, or the lining of the jacket is all basted, and I have it pinned to the main part of the jacket. I'm going to do a quick straight stitch on it just to keep everything put together. And then we're going to run over to the serger to finish it off. As I'm sewing, I'm just holding the back and pulling the front just a little bit of the waistband, not the lining, just to keep the waistband nice and tidy and get all of this fullness eased in. Make sure if you feel anything that seems to be off, make sure you straighten it out and get it all right before you sew it. Because unsewing is the pits. I think that will do. I'll pull out our basting stitch. Now I'm just going to run to the serger, and I'm going to serge this whole edge here. All right, done at the serger, and we're going to close up the hole that we made in the lining. Before I do, I just want to show you what this looks like. That's the edge. I mean, it's still not going to be perfect, and we've got a little few puckers here and there, but I did check it from the outside and it looks just fine. So I'm not going to worry about it. Okay. So the jacket's turned right side out now. And that's what the lining side looks like. We tried to ease that in as much as possible. And then the back side of the jacket on the outside looks pretty good. And I can give it a pretty good tug and it's going to stay. I mean, I'm not going to pull on the lining too hard because it would rip, but you don't pull on the lining usually when you're wearing it. Okay, just sew close to that edge and close up that hole. And the nice thing about having this seam closed like this now is I know where I can open it if I do need to get into this again for the next time it needs to be repaired. Hopefully it won't need to be repaired again, but we're good to go. All right, so here's the jacket all finished. That's the lining on the inside. No more shredded lining. So with the help of a little bit of interfacing and some serging and gathering and just basically putting it all back in, there's the seam that we opened up. And again, like I said, now it's there and I know where to pick open. It'll be a lot easier if I ever have to get back inside. And the same with the sleeve cuffs. There's the cuff. That's the inside. Again, no shredding, and that looks beautiful. So we're able to save this to wear another day. Don't you just love that feeling of breathing new life into a garment? I love that I was also able to save this one from the landfill, and it's one less item in my mending basket. In the next video, I'll be tackling a missing bra hook and altering some old dish rags to keep them in use just a little longer. And I'd love to know, do you love mending or do you hate it? And why? Tell me in the comments below. Thanks for hanging out with me in the studio today. As always, so better, so happier. Bye for now.